breaking news. James Gunn has found his Superman, and it's who we expected. Go back to our first discussions about James Gunn looking for the next Man of Steel. What's the first requirement that we said had to be met by the actor that steps into Henry Cavill's shoes? He's got to be tall. He's got to have physical stature, a presence to him. You cannot cast a 5'8" actor as the Man of Steel. It's not going to work. So James Gunn goes out and gets David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan for Clark and for Lois. Let's start with David Corenswet. Let's bring in the breaking news, though, from Deadline announcing that Gunn has found his Superman and Lois Lane. Following months of audition tapes and in-person screen tests, Warner Bros. And DC have their new Clark Kent and Lois Lane, David Corenswet, and Rachel Brosnahan. So the decision comes after the two were among the few selected to test in front of DC co-chairs Peter Safran and James Gunn, who, yes, as you may know, is directing the film. They had the full costume, they had the makeup, they had the whole thing. Like, let's see what you guys look like, the real deal. Took place over 2 days. With the men, there were 3 dudes, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but at this point, we know who it is. But 3 up for it, down to 1 for each side. And it took a long time. I mean, listen, you want to get this right. There's a lot of fans out there that were pissed off about Henry Cavill being shown the exit, right? They felt like he could continue as Superman, but not per James Gunn. And let me walk you through the decision from certainly how I would get it as an executive over at Warner Brothers. You are in a situation where you want to make multiple Superman films over the course of at least a decade. Go and look at what happened with Matt Reeves and the Batman. He needed an actor that was younger so that he could drag that actor across a decade in multiple projects featuring Batman. And in this case, same thing for James Gunn. He needs someone who is at least early 30s, hopefully late 20s. You can take up until about 40. At that point, let's just call it what it is. Once you're 40, it gets to be a little ridiculous as a superhero, unless you're obviously Robert Downey Jr., who grew into that role over the course of a decade plus. But in this case, you really have to nail it. And I'll tell you, let's talk about David Corenswet. If you aren't familiar with him, if you haven't seen his work, I'm going to put you on Pearl. And we'll look at a picture from that. Do you remember him from Pearl? There he is. Let's make it bigger and make me smaller. He was the projectionist in Pearl, of course, the prequel to X. X, one of the best horror films last year. I like X more than Pearl, but we're not going to debate that right now. We are talking about David Corenswet, the actor. Does he not look like Henry Cavill? He's a doppelganger, right? You look at him, you're like, that's absolutely Henry Cavill. He's 6'4". Let me show you, because that's the first thing I wanted to confirm, that the dude was tall. He's 6'4". So we call this, guys, this is what we do on Midnight Movie Talk. For those of you who are just joining us here in the afternoon, you're like, what the heck's going on? This is usually on at 11 o'clock in the East Coast, 8 on the West Coast. We moved it up an hour for you. Now we're in the middle of the day. So no excuses for you not to be here live. Everyone else is like making videos right now on YouTube. Here's David Corenswet. Here's Rachel Brosnahan. Edit, edit, edit. We are like, no, we're going to boom, shoot live. That's how we do it. Corenswet, 6'4". He's got the physical stature, like we said months ago, you have to have. So you knew that it had to happen. And look, James Gunn proves us right.